All right, everyone. Welcome to Module 4, Day 2. Today we're going to learn about health insurance. So, health insurance costs have increased rapidly over time, and there are several contributors. We're going to learn what those are. Then once we do that, we're going to talk about the different types of plans and the different types of things that go into plans. What you should go ahead and do is get out your health insurance card if you have one. As we go along, you'll be able to reference your card and learn about many of the things that are on that card. I know when I was younger, I didn't necessarily understand all the items that were on my insurance card. You'll learn that today. So if you'd like to get that out. And then lastly, we'll have our worksheet for Module 4, Day 2. It's an insurance card exercise. I've changed it a little bit to where you can do an activity with the insurance cards, and then it also is a bit of an activity on the Affordable Care Act. So the current legislation states that everybody has to have insurance. That's called the individual mandate. I'm going to have you go on the marketplace, which is subsidized government insurance provided by health insurance companies. I want you to look up premiums and answer a few questions about it. So you'll be doing some work with the insurance cards, but then also some work with the marketplace to help you understand premiums and different types of policies, as well as a bit more about the discussion of the Affordable Care Act. Okay, so health insurance costs a lot. What do you think? In 2012, what percentage of U.S. personal bankruptcies were the result of medical costs? 62%, 17%, 5%, or 38%. A whopping 62%. Turns out people really under budget and underinsure for their own health issues. A lot of times they think, oh, I'm insured, I'm covered, but because of the limits that they don't understand or the lack of coverage, they are really hit hard by financial issues or by health issues. What do you think this graph is saying? On this axis, I have time. On this axis, I have percent of income, percent of your take-home pay or your earned income. And so the orange line represents health insurance premiums. This is year-to-year changes. So we'll see on the next slide about that. But this is year-to-year changes in these different values over time. And so we have health insurance premiums here. We have workers' earnings and overall inflation. So what story is this graph telling? Well, it's showing that premiums have significantly outpaced wages since 1999, which means we're getting effectively poorer. If we look at a graph of the percent of family income, here it is, right? Percent of your budget spent on health insurance. This is a projection that was generated in 2007, so we're actually living this out right now. But it's projected that health insurance premiums are going to increase from 18% of people's incomes all the way up to 24%. So a quarter of your earnings could be tied up in health insurance premiums if you have for the median family. So what's going on? Well, there's many reasons, and it's hard to pin down exactly what's going on, but there's several things we know for sure about why health insurance is becoming more expensive. One is that we have more expensive medical technology. We can do more things than before, and that stuff is expensive. So when people undergo these procedures, right, we have to pay for them. And since everybody's pooling their risk in the insurance pool, everybody shares that cost, and so everybody pays a little bit more in the terms of a premium. Low supply of policies relative to high demand means that we're going to have high prices, and then so it's kind of like that lack of competition between insurance companies allows them to keep prices high. And then lastly, one of the largest contributors is the aging U.S. population. So the way to read this graph, these are the total number of men and total number of women in the United States in each age category. And the light gray represents what it looked like in 1982. So we can see that the majority of our population was in the 20 to 30 range. And there wasn't so many old people for both males and females. However, what does population growth look like in this type of graph? Well, it means that these bars need to go higher, right? That means we have more people in each category. And so if it's doing it for all categories, then population's growing. And we see that happening. But what's interesting is the growth in that 25 to 29 category versus the growth in the 70, 80, 90 category. We have more older people as a proportion of the population than ever before. And where do you think the most healthcare costs you'll ever have are in your lifetime? Well, they're when you're old, right? You spend the most in healthcare at the end of your life. So because our population density now looks like this, we have a large demand, a large strain on health insurance to help pay for these people's adverse health conditions. And that gets expensive for everyone when you think about pooling the risk. Okay, so we're going to move on to learning about a few different things you'll see on your insurance card. I've pulled up a sample insurance card. I'm not exactly sure if this is actually a company or not, but there's some things on here that you might see on your own health insurance card. Deductible, co-pays, and co-insurance. So let's figure out those things. Well, a deductible is the amount owed by the insured, that's you, before any benefits come from the policy. So before you get any insurance payments from the insurance company, you have to pay up to your deductible. So what is it on this card? A $250 deductible. That means that you have to pay $250 before any insurance kicks in. So if you have a surgery for $1,000, you're going to pay $250 straight up before any insurance kicks in. The next $750, now you have some insurance on that. Then you have the participation or co-insurance stipulation. And this determines how much of a covered loss in excess of that deductible that the insurance company will pay. So even though we have $750 unpaid after we pay our deductible, the insurance company just doesn't pay for all $750 of that. We go through co-insurance or cost sharing. And so that looks like this on your insurance card will be stated as a percentage. And so, for example, here, that same surgery, we will pay $250 out of pocket. And then this card tells us that if we go in network, we'll get to what that means now or later. But for now, if we go in network to our doctor, the insurance company will pay 80% of the bill, which means we'll pay 20% of that remaining $750. Okay, so what have we paid total out of pocket on this claim? Well, we've paid the $250, and then we're going to pay 20% of what's remaining, right? This is going to be our out-of-pocket expense. Okay, and so 0.2 times 750 plus the 250 we've already paid gives us $400. Right, this comes out to $150 and this comes out to $250. So our $1,000 claim, we pay $400 of it. These co-insurance usually have limits for you as the insured. These are called stop losses. So one single event can't break your budget, right? And the reason why they exist is suppose that you have 80-20 co-insurance, but you have $1 million claim. Okay, that's extreme, but you have $1 million claim. Well, you're on the hook if we ignore any deductibles for $200,000. Who can cover that in such a short time period, or maybe ever, right? That's huge for some families. So we have a stop loss provision which prevents you from having to pay so much. So you might be 80-20 co-insurance up to a surgical limit of $100,000 annual. Once you hit that $100,000, the insurance company will usually pay 100%. We also have something that's very similar called an internal limit. This is not a protection for you, but this is a limit on what the insurance company will give you. So the example here I've given you is some different types of limits. $500,000 lifetime stop loss. That protects you, right? If you get more than $500,000 in your lifetime, the insurance company is going to pay 100%. $1,000 deductible, 80/20 coinsurance, and here's our internal limits. Very typical one is a hospital room. So the insurance company is only going to pay $350 a day. For surgery, they'll only pay $6,000 total in a year. So let's take a look. Here's some examples, some claims. You had one on January 20th. You had one on May 10th. And the May 10th surgery required hospitalization of 3 days. So we want to think about how much do you pay with internal limits or without them and with them. Well, without internal limits, it's pretty easy. We can total up all the insurance claims for the year. So $3,800 plus $5,800 plus $1,500 is $11,100 total, right? You are definitely going to pay $1,000 of that. That's your deductible. So that means that there is $10,100 left over to think about with coinsurance. So here we're looking at your out-of-pocket, and you currently have spent $1,000. You're co-insured on the rest of the $10,000, and we're considering right now with no internal limits. And so how much do you pay on that $10,100? Well, you paid your deductible, so now we'll do coinsurance. So do you pay 80 or do you pay 20? Right? You usually pay the lower. So 10,100 times 0.2. So that's going to be 2,020, which means you pay 30/20 without internal limits. Okay, but now if we want to think about with internal limits, we have to consider whether we have any limits on what is coinsured. And so now we have to be careful to go step by step. And I think it helps to think about what the insurance company pays. So with this claim, there's no limits on other medical expenses. And so let's do this. Here is the insurance company, and here is your out-of-pocket. Okay, insurance company, you pay $1,000. The insurance company is going to pay 80% of what's remaining. Or $2,240. And then you'll pay the 20% of what's remaining, which is $560. Okay, no limits there applied. Now, let's look at this surgical expense. The total amount is less than $6,000, so there's no way that their 80% is going to be more than $6,000. So the limit doesn't apply here to that one as well. We've already paid our deductible, so 80% of that is $4,640. And 20% of $5,800 is $1,160. Now we're down here to hospital bed, hospital room. And so they're charging us $500 a day, but we have an internal limit of $350 a day. So now we need to think about this carefully. At $500 a day, I'm asking the insurance company to pay 80%, which is $400. They're not willing to pay that. They're only willing to pay $350. So I definitely still pay my 20% for 3 days, right? 80/20 of the $500. But I also get what they won't pick up. They're only going to spend $350. The bill I send to them is $400. So then I'm also going to get billed for $50 each day because of the internal limit on the hospital room. Okay, so the insurance company ends up only paying $350 a day for those 3 days. So in total, if we add up our out-of-pocket expenses, $1,000 plus $560 plus $1,160 plus $300 plus $150, we see $3,170, which is greater than what we would have paid if there were no internal limits. So internal limits protect insurance company from frivolous uses of medical treatments, and stop losses protect the consumer from having too much out of pocket. And the last thing is coordination of benefits. So if you were to have two types of health insurance policies, you're not going to be double covered for the same losses. It basically says on your policy that you will take one or the other, but you cannot take coverage from both, so you can't earn money off of a claim. Okay. Now that we have, covered that, we're going to take a break, and then we'll come back and do the types of insurance policies.